Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It is I, your host, Mr. Sean, here with lesser known Lost Media Volume 107. Before we begin, please click that like button. It's a small click for you, but it means an awful lot to this channel. Let's see if this video can get 50 likes. Now, if this is the first time you've ever been with us, congratulations, you get 106 episodes to watch after you're done with this one. Now, how this works is I cover in each episode 5 pieces of obscure Lost media that you just don't hear about on other Lost Media YouTube channels. We start with 4 family-friendly, safe-for-work pieces of Lost media, take a brief break, and then end with a 5th, spicier piece. That's it. Let's begin. Starting off today's episode, we have Eros, a partially found, unfinished Deftones album from 2008. Now, in mid-April of 2008, alternative metal band Deftones began recording what was intended to be their 6th studio album, Eros, the name stemming from an in-joke between band members about the excessive use of the term in German adult material. Somewhat fittingly, the tentative names for several songs were named after strippers. Now, tension had begun rising between the band members from 2000 to 2007 due to troubles in their personal lives. In 2007, the band had an intervention of sorts, making sure if they still wanted it to be a band. After unanimously agreeing to stay together, revamping their studio to include a bar and generally make it a more casual place to hang out, by October 2007, they had written half an album's worth of songs and made the tentative title of Eros for it in January of 2008. Alongside recording the album, they released 5 in-studio mini-documentaries online following the album's progress for the first time in the band's history. Now, on November 3rd of 2008, just as Chino Marino, the lead vocalist, had left the studio after recording some vocal tracks for Eros, of which he was halfway through completing, he was told that the bassist Chi Cheng had been involved in a serious car accident shortly before that. Cheng was rushed to the hospital and was later announced to be in a coma. All production on the album immediately ceased, and the band turned their focus to their injured friend. After the hospital visit, Cheng was reportedly in a semi-comatose state, being able to move his legs and follow people with his eyes, but unable to speak or move otherwise. Deftones went on to release 2 more albums in 2010 and 2012, Diamond Eyes and Koino Yoken respectively, with replacement bassist Sergio Vega. Their official reasoning for this was because Eros was a very dark album, so they wanted to make more uplifting albums to cope with Cheng's condition. Despite Cheng seemingly improving, he died of cardiac arrest on April 13, 2013, making Eros the last thing the bassist worked on. Marino stated that he would have preferred to release the album after Cheng got better so they could go on tour with all of the original band members. Since his death, however, he stated that while the band definitely wants to release the album, they also want to wait for a time where the songs can be viewed on their own merits. Now, despite the album currently being shelved, some demos and songs from the album have surfaced. In July of 2008, Moreno posted an instrumental demo online for a new song titled You've Seen the Butcher, a title of which would later be reused for a different song on Diamond Eyes. While this wasn't officially stated as being on the album, it can be assumed that it would have been on there, as Eros was the only album they had planned at the time. Additionally, in September of the same year, they began playing a new song titled Melanie during live tours, which would have also been on the album. Finally, on April 13, 2014, Moreno uploaded the song Smile from the album to his YouTube channel in honor of Cheng's passing the previous year, making it the first time they officially released a track from the album so far. 2 days later, despite Moreno himself releasing it, Warner Music Group took it down on the grounds of copyright infringement. It has since been mirrored. Other songs that were announced for the album included Dallas, Destiny, Melanie, and Tempest. It's always the worst, guys, when the reason a piece of media is lost is due to tragedy. And that is the case here. I'm not really familiar with Deftones. I've heard of them, but I don't really know their music. But this, of course, is a very sad situation as to why this piece was lost. And while it does seem like the band, at least at some point, has plans to release it, I don't know, it seems like there might be some legal issue, seeing as Warner Music Group took it down for copyright infringement, even though the lead singer of the band himself posted it, so that's a little weird, but maybe we'll get this one someday, who knows. Our second piece today is Chachamaru Bokinki 2, a lost build of an unreleased Famicom role-playing game sequel from 1991. So, Chachamaru Bokinki 2 was a game planned for the Nintendo Famicom to be released in 1991 by the company Human Entertainment, but was cancelled for unknown reasons. Interestingly, a sequel to the game had been released for the Nintendo Game Boy as Chachamaru Bokinki 3 Abyss no To, released later that same year. The game was likely cancelled due to the sequel's development nearing completion, as well as the fact that the game was releasing very late in the Famicom's lifespan, as its successor, the Super Famicom, had released a year prior. As to the gameplay, with only 2 low-quality screenshots of the game looks to be a standard late-era NES game. Displaying colorful character sprites, it can be assumed that the game plays similarly to its successor, but how similar they may be is unknown. The game's prototype has not appeared anywhere online in cartridge format or on ROM. Cancelled video game sequels are a dime a dozen, guys, but what makes this one very interesting to me is that they scrapped the sequel and instead released the sequel to the sequel that never came out. I'm not familiar with this series, so I don't know if there were maybe references in 3 that would have been to 2, but people were left a little confused because 2 never came out. But ultimately that is really funny. It'd be like if they decided, hey, we're not gonna, we've almost finished filming Return of the Jedi, let's not release Empire Strikes Back, but who knows how much of an impact it actually had. But this one's very interesting, very funny to me. At number 3, we have Brave Little Toaster 2 Homemade, partially found production material for a cancelled animated film sequel from 2009 to 2012. Now, if you're like me, you remember the Brave Little Toaster, and it's how it made fireman clowns scary and also gave you weird, the same way Toy Story 2 made you feel weird about not playing with toys, it made you feel weird and guilty about getting rid of old and broken appliances. It's kind of a dark film for kids. But anyway, Brave Little Toaster 2 Homemade was the code name for a proposed sequel to the 1987 animated feature The Brave Little Toaster, conceived by the original film's writer and director Jerry Rees. Although several sequels had been produced for this movie already, it is referred to as the second installment since it's meant to directly follow the first movie's ending. The plot would have revolved around the Toaster's gang, alongside some new characters, venturing back to their master's cabin to save it from being demolished. Now, despite the original film being fully animated, Rees intended the film to be a live-action / computer animated hybrid feature. This is not, however, to be confused with the proposed live-action / computer animated reboot announced by Waterman Entertainment in 2012, which effectively halted any further development on this sequel concept. Hyperion Pictures, the producer of the original film, also plugged a CG toaster project around 2005-2006, but it is unknown whether it is connected to Rees's sequel idea or not. Now, as to the availability, an animation test was produced around 2009 or 2010 by a consortium of Filipino animators who also worked on Hoodwinked. The full animation test has yet to be found, but several clips resurfaced online. In 2017, Jerry Rees uploaded a website called Reflections of a Toaster, which contains story excerpts that are based on the story beats from the sequel, with a brief plug for the project at the end. The full script has yet to be found, and despite the issues of ownership rights, Rees occasionally expresses interest in possibly making the project at some point. Now, if you're not looking at the screen right now, I would suggest that you do, so you can see this abomination that is the CGI version of the Brave Little Toaster Gang. I mean, this looks terrible. And again, while the point of Lost Media is for it to be found, I'm very glad this film didn't get made. I mean, for all of its dark themes and how it was kind of terrifying as a child, there was a certain level of darkness in children's movies. I was born in 88, this movie came out a year before that, but it was definitely I had a VHS of it. Films like this, like Land Before Time, they didn't sugarcoat things like death, abandonment, and while they made it child appropriate, the darker tone of children's media at the time, I think, prepared millennials like myself for the harsh realities of the world we now face. And it did all of this in beautifully drawn 2D animation. And while yes, I understand that it is easier for animators to work with CGI, if you're going to make a sequel to a film, again, I have no problem with CGI animated films, but if you're going to make a sequel to a film that was done with hand-drawn animation, you gotta keep that vibe going. You gotta maintain the aesthetic. You need that continuity, especially if you're considering it a direct sequel and saying that it is the official second installment. So, I'm sorry, but I can't see why this would have needed to be done the way it was. But hey, hopefully one day we find what was made of this, even if we can just go, wow, thank God that didn't get finished. Alright guys, coming in at number 4, we have The Graham Kennedy Show, a lost episode with the crow call incident from 1975. So, The Graham Kennedy Show was an Australian television talk show that aired on the Nine network between 1972 and 1975. The program was a mix of guest interviews and sketches hosted by Graham Kennedy. Kennedy is often referred to as the King of Australian television. Now, on the 3rd of March 1975, during an advertisement segment, Kennedy made a crow call that sounded like a familiar profanity. Thousands of complaints flooded the station, which led to him being banned from performing live on television by the Australian Broadcasting Control Board. Shortly after, he resigned from Channel 9 and didn't return to television for 2 years. So what was the crow call incident? Well, a regular feature of the show was Kennedy riffing on the program's sponsors during their product segments. He was known for this since his first program in Melbourne Tonight, which ran from 1957 to 1969. A recurring gag was Kennedy's crow call of "Ark!" On the live episode airing on the 3rd of March 1975, Kennedy would make these calls while announcer Rosemary Morgan was trying to promote the hairspray Sidel. The Nine Network reportedly received hundreds of complaints from viewers that believed they heard Kennedy add an F to his regular call. That night, the show's screening in Adelaide had a 1 second to the offending call. And while the article doesn't say, I'm assuming the 1 second is like a 1 second delay so that they can edit it. Now, afterwards, the pressure from the Australian Broadcasting Control Board, then Australia's broadcasting regulation body of the time, led to future episodes of the program being pre-taped, thus stopping the show from being broadcast live. Now pre-taping his shows, the 16th of April 1975 episode, Kennedy opened the show with a scathing attack on the then Minister for the Media, Senator Doug McClelland, for his failure to support local content regulations for TV. During his attack, Kennedy made jokes about the crow call. Because the show was no longer live, the Nine Network decided to edit this out. It was not long after that Kennedy announced his retirement from television. The original master tapes from this episode did survive, with the introduction intact, and have since been uploaded to YouTube. So fortunately, we're not talking about 2 lost episodes. But according to the National Film and Sound Archive, the master tape of the offending episode was handed over to the Australian Broadcasting Control Board for review. To date, the whereabouts of the tape are unknown, although a well-known part of Australian television history and Kennedy's career, no footage or audio of the crow call incident has ever surfaced. Now, I know this happened in 1975, but I'm always amazed at, being an American, how much violence we're allowed to show on television, but anything involving sex or even a little bit of bad language seems to really piss off the reviewing board. And that to me has always been very interesting, a little short-sighted. And it's not just television. I mean, my parents, when I was growing up, I was somewhat sheltered, not nearly as much as some people out there, but my mom specifically was very against exposing me to any type of sexual content. And I mean, again, kids at a certain age don't need to be exposed to that, but the idea was, in video games, didn't matter, and movies, video games, whatever, it didn't matter how much violence, blood, gore was in it, as long as boobs didn't show up, and no people didn't utter the F-bomb too many times, it was good to go. And it's just amazing to me how, some things are considered perfectly fine for public consumption, but then other things that I put on like equal levels of appropriateness or lack thereof are not. So, this one's interesting. Also, for being such a well-known part of such a famous person's career, it's amazing it's never resurfaced. All right, guys, we're going to get to that spicy piece here in just a moment. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about some spicy stuff of my own that I'm offering. As you may know, if you've been to this channel before, I sell custom miniatures, some in the spicy variety, over on eBay and Mercari. These are known as my Vixie Clicks. We have some pop figures of the same style. We're calling those Vixie Pops. I also have a ton of, let's call it waifu merchandise, as I am downsizing my otaku box and my anime figure collection. So there are wall scrolls, there are anime items, there are figures, exclusive figures from the otaku box. I actually recently, we've decided to get rid of quite a bit while we downsize in order to make room for new collectibles on the horizon that my wife and I want. Also, I am going to do a video about why I have recently ended my otaku box subscription. I've sung its praises before, but I did recently decide to go ahead and end it. So that'll be in a future video. But anyway, guys, you can find all of this stuff for sale at reasonable prices, as well as merchandise on our Fourth Wall store. That's official merchandise of Mr. Sean Productions. All of this can be found by clicking on the links in the video description. It's all my links. It will take you to a list of things: how to find my Instagram, my TikTok, my Fourth Wall, my eBay, my Mercari, how you can email me if you want to commission a mini for yourself or just give me some ideas, want to make contact. Anyway, all of that is in the description. Check the links. If you haven't already, click like, click subscribe. Now let's get to that spicy piece. All right, guys, for our spicy piece today, please be aware this has some very sensitive subject material involving death and SA. So for our spicy piece today, we have the executions of Jaime Jose, Basilio Pineda Jr., and Edgardo Aquino, which is lost electric chair footage of Filipino convicted rapists from 1972. On May 17th, 1972, Jaime Jose, Basilio Pineda Jr., and Edgardo Aquino, who were convicted of the abduction and rape of Filipina actress Maggie de la Riva, were executed via electric chair at New Bilibid Prison. The trial and subsequent execution following a highly publicized gang rape incident was notable for having been carried out during the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos, who controversially ordered the triple execution to be broadcast on media live. A little background to this. Magdalena Maggie de la Riva, who was born September 3, 1942, is a Filipina former actress and media personality. She appeared in a number of film and television productions and also performed on radio broadcasts during the 1960s. She was also one of the top 5 finalists for the beauty pageant Miss Caltex of 1963, and she represented Filipino gowns for the Fashion Guild of the Philippines under the designer Millie's Gowns. Her reputation would, however, be overshadowed by a gang rape incident where she was abducted and molested by a gang of 4 men, all of whom were from wealthy and influential families, which consisted of Jaime Gomez Jose, Edgardo Payumo Aquino, Basilio Pineda Jr., and Rogelio Sevilla Canal. Following her recovery, De la Riva and her family filed a rape case in the Quezon City Court of First Instance. The perpetrators were arrested not long after and put on trial, where they were sentenced to death by electric chair. Canal would be spared from the chair as he died months prior due to a drug overdose while in prison in an apparent suicide. Despite support from both Marcos himself and at least some Filipinos, it was met with intense criticism over the country's implementation of capital punishment at the time, which experienced a surge during Marcos's rule. The Philippines would later abolish the death penalty following pressure from Roman Catholic clergy in the country, though the debate remains controversial to this day. The rape case was noted for being something of a media circus in the Philippines due to the people involved and the aforementioned intervention of Ferdinand Marcos, who ordered the execution to be publicly broadcast. It would later be dramatized in an exploitation biopic entitled The Maggie de la Riva Story, God, Why Me?, directed by Carlo J. Caparas and starring Don Zululeta in the title role. Now, what is available? Well, despite having been mentioned by numerous sources and the historical significance of the incident, partially due to the broadcast being done under the orders of then President Marcos, no known footage of the execution is available. Sources also vary as to where the executions were aired. While most witness accounts and media outlets claim that it was broadcast on radio, other news sources and eyewitness accounts recall having watched the electric chair affair on television. A conflicting report from the Canadian newspaper The Post states that while 2 radio networks were present to give a blow-by-blow account of the execution, neither the radio journalists nor photographers were allowed from covering the actual incident. Now, the death penalty is always a controversial issue, and I'm not going to get into whether or not it should be a thing here. That's not the point of this channel. But I remember an old episode of Law and Order where it revolved around the emotional weight of the characters after watching an execution by lethal injection. And when the captain of the precinct she's asked, why didn't you go? And she said, if there was anything I could gain from seeing that, I would have gone, but there isn't, so I didn't, or something along those lines. And while I truly believe that people need to pay for their crimes, I don't need to watch it happen. And this just seems something like kind of to broadcast it live on TV or radio. I mean, again, these men certainly deserve to be punished for their heinous act. Whether or not they deserved death is a matter of opinion. I'm not really going to share mine, but I think having people listen or watch it on live radio and TV, that's messed up. I don't necessarily think that needs to be on the air. I know I was just talking about things like violence and all that, and I mean, I guess if you want to see it, you can. I personally would not have wanted to watch it. I don't necessarily want to watch it if it's found, but it is an important thing on the history of Philippines media, so I guess it does deserve to be archived, simply due to its importance, if nothing else. And that's the video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today for this, our 107th episode of Lesser Known Lost Media. We're still trying to get to 1,180 subscribers at the time of recording so that we can do a giveaway. Again, really trying to push those subscriber counts, trying to get those up, trying to get the view counts up, trying to get the like and comment counts up. So please, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Please please leave a comment, whether that's just, hey, how are you? Or if you have a suggestion for a piece of media for a future episode, and action drives action. So share this video with your friends. There is going to be, at the end of this, there will be a playlist that pops up for Lesser Known Lost Media. That's every episode we've ever made. So go ahead and click it. Keep it on in the background. Get caught up. Listen to it again. Just help us get those view counts up, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I want to give a big shout out to J-Dog, my most long-time patron over on Patreon. You can sign up for memberships or Patreon patronages starting as low as 99 cents per month. And again, that gets you access to all the member exclusive videos, as well as these videos tend to get released a little early as I do make them ahead of time, just to prevent any crow call incidents from happening. So again, thank you so much. I'm Mr. Sean. This is Mr. Sean Productions, and I sincerely hope that you alpha great day and an even beta tomorrow. Bye-bye.